Good afternoon, good evening, and good morning, wherever you are joining us from around the world. This is Tipping Point, where we meet weekly with industry visionaries and leaders and have some thoughtful conversations that hopefully teach us all something and have a nice time along the way. I am your host, Andrew Potkowitz, and I am delighted to be joined today by Vandhana Sinha. Welcome, Vandhana.
Thank you, Andrew. It's a pleasure being here.
Before we get going, I'm curious, where are you based?
I'm in Boca Raton, Florida right now. As you can see, it's very pretty out behind me, nice and green. That's where I live and work remotely out of.
What's the humidity level right now in Boca?
Oh gosh, I'll have to look at my phone for that, but it's very, very humid usually. Let's see if I can tell you that. My phone is taking its time.
That's all right.
But as soon as you step out of the house, I mean, as soon as I step out of the house, I start sweating.
Yeah,
So it reminds me a lot of like Mumbai, which where we it was no point just you'd shower 2 3 times a day, and even that wasn't enough.
it's that weather, and having moved from the Northeast and now located in Charleston, where it is much more humid and even more humid where you are. I've just resigned myself to the fact that anytime I walk outside, I'm just going to feel disgusting and be sweaty all day. So you shower and you walk outside and immediately feel like you need another shower. So
Yes,
these are the inside months in the Southeast.
yes, that's how it is like out here. Fortunately, we had some respite. July was very, very hot. It was like a furnace in here,
Yeah.
and but it's getting better.
All right, so we are live out across LinkedIn, YouTube, and Facebook. For any folks out there in the audience who would like to engage, ask questions, make comments, by all means, please drop those in the chats of those respective platforms, and they will show up on my end, and Vandana and I can discuss them. This is the first, we are now in the 9th episode of this Tipping Point vidcast, and to date, comments have come in once the session starts. This is an anomaly in that you actually were getting messages prior to the session even starting. So quickly out of the gate, you have a note here. Best wishes, Vandana, for the podcast. Keep inspiring, from Vishal and Rabati. And a second one, as a matter of fact, great seeing you. So already a fan base out there. So Vandana, let's kick it off by talking a little bit about your trajectory, your experience within Fulcrum. You are now a board member and a strategic advisor to the firm. How long has your journey been with Fulcrum?
So I helped co-found Fulcrum back in 1999, and Rajesh and I vividly remember the time when we were trying to come up with a name for the business, and we went back and forth a lot, and finally we stuck with Fulcrum. It was slightly different from Fulcrum Digital at that time, but I did not work at Fulcrum until 2010 or so, when I started part time and came full time in 2012.
Just making a quick note there. I appreciate that the name chosen was Fulcrum. It gives us on the marketing team endless possibilities to work with that, whether it's through a vidcast called Tipping Point or gaining leverage. So I've worked at places where the name of the agency is a bit challenging to market in that sense. So kudos to you on that. So you came on board. You were working part-time with you had Fulcrum, and then you went on full time. And what were some of the roles you've had along the way?
I started as a business analyst. And actually I kind of didn't get I had no time to get my feet wet. It was like straight dive in and sink or swim situation. Um, so that was very interesting. I learned so much during that time. After that, I was hardly in that role, and I was thrown into a project manager role very quickly. It was more of a need at that time, and I started managing projects. And then, before I knew it, I moved back into an accounting role. I used to do accounting before I joined Fulcrum, And I moved into an accounting role and took on the CFO responsibilities for Red Stage. And I've done a whole bunch of things within Fulcrum. I've taken care of some legal aspects that we've had to grapple with. I've taken care of HR when necessary. Even Fulcrum's own financial uh, reports, I have worked on those, and just a little of everything except for coding. The only thing I haven't done is code. So
So
yeah.
just for the edification of those out there watching and listening, Red Stages that Vandana referred to was an e-commerce agency that Fulcrum acquired. We have since rebranded it as Fulcrum Commerce, so it does fall in line with the other pods within Fulcrum, whether it's higher education or insurance or financial services. So off of that, you talked about, and it's interesting, I think we have historically, and by we, I mean this industry, the tech industry, the systems integration industry, the services side of the business have had a lot of challenges through growth of because it is time and materials, right? This is not a monthly recurring revenue, annual recurring revenue business. The hours that you get paid for, the hours you work. Folks don't have benches, right? Everyone is utilized, and I think a challenge in the industry is onboarding. As you referenced, and this happens at all services companies. There's a need. The person goes to fill that need, and it's sort of, as you said, sink or swim. It's a little it can be stressful. So it's certainly an area where I think all of us need to improve as an ecosystem with onboarding and training and ensuring folks understand the requirements and are comfortable in doing what they're doing. Now, that said, there's also this element of you don't earn the role until you can do it kind of thing sometimes out there.
Yeah.
So I'm sure you had crash courses of your own as you went from role to role as the company grew. Okay. So, growing from a small, what was ostensibly a design and dev shop into a global powerhouse across many industries, many verticals, grew to the point where it sort of made sense to bring on a board of directors, which I really admire, because I see so many of these companies out there, be they on the tech side or the services side, where it's a very young team, very smart team. They have this great idea, but there's not a lot of, let's say, adults in the room or executive leadership to help them guide this vision. So I think, being on a board is something that you're drawing from expertise across these different industries that have gone through change management and growth inflection points and scaling from 15 up to 1,500 plus employees. That's was that a meaningful change for Fulcrum and for you and the team?
Yes, we actually, when we started, we were the young people and the rookies, so to speak, without much guidance and mentorship. And and fortunately, I think that's more to Rajesh's credit, that he was we waded the waters successfully, and there were some bumps along the way, but I probably would not have imagined seeing us where we are today back then. So
Yeah.
I'm very grateful for this abundance of growth and success. And I try to never forget where we came from. Our beginnings are very humble.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's always valuable to learn from your own mistakes, but it's even better to learn from someone else's mistakes.
Yes.
So that team that Fulcrum has assembled there is impressive, and the stories I hear from, this is what we did in this situation, and these are the risks, and this is the benefit, and how you can navigate through it have been invaluable to the company, and certainly to me as I onboard and grow in my role here. All right, so you're on this path with Fulcrum. You're jumping around from role to role. The company is growing pretty quickly, servicing 12 offices globally, and you decided to step away a little bit from the day to day. Can you talk me through a little bit what
Yeah.
inspired that and what you were looking to accomplish there?
So I was most involved with Fulcrum when we were going through a downturn. We actually were struggling a little in from 2015 to sometime in 2017, and that's when I took on the most. I was doing the most varied tasks. I managed, as I mentioned, I managed HR, legal, accounting, finance, all that stuff. Not for the entire company, but as and when the need arose, I would jump right into situations and take care of them. And then starting 2017 or so, um, I I felt like I was a little burnt out from all that. And I decided, unfortunately, we were at a point where we were growing and we hired more people to take on some of the responsibilities that I was handling at that time. So for me, that was an opportunity to just take a back seat and more guide people in the right direction as and when needed. So it was more governance for some time. And then came COVID. And after COVID, we shortly after COVID, we moved to Florida. So for the last 2 years, my involvement has been limited, if I should be honest. I do get called in, and I do get involved once in a while, maybe a few times a week, in some tasks and some special projects as needed. But for the most part, it's my involvement is somewhat limited at this point. I've taken a back seat and I'm letting everyone else take care of business. But they reach out to me whenever necessary.
Was that a difficult transition going from being, in the trenches day to day and having um, a lens that was a wide lens across so many different disciplines and being an integral part of sort of that machine functioning and stepping away and feeling less connected to it?
So at first it was fun. I enjoyed it for some time, and it granted me a good amount of reflection and contemplation as to who I am as a person and what I want, and just the journey, like from start to where we are today. But then I did get bored. I did feel a sense of boredom, and whenever I feel bored and itching to do something, I tend to go back to school.
Ah,
So I went to school a lot. Actually, I've over the last couple of decades, I was in school a lot, and now I'm looking forward to going back to school again next month. Hopefully, studying something called Ayurveda. I'm not sure if you know much about that, but
no.
it's traditional Indian medicine, which I'm looking forward to studying, along with being part of Fulcrum and doing everything else I do.
Wow. So staying busy in one capacity or another,
Yeah.
and we certainly respect that, and come from a family where idle time is feels like wasted time. So definitely always wanting to stay active. Um, we do have another comment in here,
Mhm.
which is a heartfelt, but keep it together.
Oh, thank
Um,
you, Kane.
so very nice. Um, So can we talk a little bit about, and we caught up a few weeks ago, sort of just to discuss what this conversation might look like. And I
Hmm.
think one of the areas of focus for you in that conversation was when you did sort of step away or step higher level and not, got off the ground of the day to day. You were looking for a bit more work life balance. I think looking at life and what you've invested in blood, sweat, and tears in this growing business. Um, I'm putting words in your mouth now. Also understanding how much sort of happening around you that it's easy to miss out on when you are grinding for 12, 14 hours a day, growing a services company. Um, so the work-life balance piece, what did you do when you stepped away to sort of refine and redefine your relationship with the business and your relationship, with your surroundings?
So a couple of things I did. I took on the responsibility of our philanthropy uh, foundation, our Fulcrum Foundation. I took responsibility for that for a while, and it was very rewarding in the sense that I saw directly what we could do, how we could impact lives in India and in other places too. We've done so many things there, like support. We have 12 families in a village that we support, and this is an entire, I mean, entire families. Like they were so destitute that they could not, they didn't know where the next meal was coming from. Besides that, we have done many things in that sphere, as in help children with school supplies. We have helped with COVID supplies. So I was engaged in some of that, although remotely. I didn't really. I wish I was there in person to help out. Um, but other than that, it was a lot of self-reflection, a lot of um, I I went down the spiritual path also, where I did not, believe it or not, I did 180 on that. For the longest time, I was an atheist, and a very vocal atheist at that. And then I had some sort of this spiritual experience where I there was nothing I didn't believe in, nothing I didn't think was possible. And that's it. I spent a lot of time going deeper and deeper into that for a while. Made a couple of mistakes along the way. I joined a group that wasn't such a good experience, but it's all part of the journey. And been spending a lot of time just thinking about what I want to do, what in with myself, with my time. And I've been spending a lot of time thinking about what I want to do with my time. So one might think it's a waste of time, but actually I found it to be very productive in that it made me clear as to what I didn't want to do. And where, for example, I used to teach finance and accounting and economics, and I realized that I wasn't connected to those subjects anymore. Not as I still will be an accountant at heart, I feel. I will be able to look at balance sheets and profit and loss statements and what have you, and cash flow statements, and be able to analyze them. But I didn't enjoy teaching it as much anymore.
Yeah.
So I left doing that. I still There's still a teacher in me, and I do want to teach eventually, but I'm not sure what it's going to be. I'm still exploring that and still trying to understand what I want to do and building my skills in that, in certain areas where I can take that forward.
It's I'm smiling because this is a conversation I have frequently with younger folks, whether they're my younger cousins or their kids, or sometimes in a work environment with younger younger team members, which is, we are all asked as children,
Hmm.
what do you want to be when you grow up, right? In part because the sky's the limit, and certainly in the US in particular, where every kindergartner is told you can be president one day if you want to be, right? If you work hard enough, you can do that. There, this is not a like a landed aristocracy system where if your father was a baker, you're a baker, that kind of thing. There's options. But what do you want to be when you grow up? And the reality is, it's a fun question to hear answers to, police officer, fireman, but kids don't know, right? Kids, and high schoolers don't. I didn't know in high school what I wanted to be when I grew up. I still am not sure if I've grown up yet, so I still have ambitions. But to your point, what the reality is, you come out of school and you really have no applicable experience to the world. You have had no world experience, no life experience, no real work experience outside of some small jobs. So you end up taking a job where there's some things that are attractive about it. You're like, I like these things, I'm going to take this job. And then you recognize the things about this particular job that you don't necessarily like. You sort of bounce off that guardrail and go back toward, well, I want more of these things, less of these things. And then you hit this other one and you find more things that you like, but you also uncover things you don't like. So it's this sort of, you're bouncing back and forth down this funnel. You know, and I hope to get to the end of the funnel at some point to know exactly what I want to do in life. But there's so much out there, and there's so many resources at your fingertips, especially now with the internet, with things that you can learn and research on your own. That it's hard to figure out what you want to do in life, and what you want the meaning of your life to be outside of, you know, financial stability and all those things. So yeah, that
So financial stability, that is what is important to have, I think, to some extent, although some people chase it a bit too much. When it comes to that, I think it's necessary to have some of that before you go and explore what you want to do, what you really want for yourself. And that is something that we struggled with for some time, because we didn't neither Rajesh nor I came from a very strong financial background, as in what I'm trying to say is that we didn't come from wealthy backgrounds, and it wasn't even like, I mean, we came to this country with nothing. We just a couple of suitcases of clothes and just, I mean, a head full of dreams, and that's it. I mean, and so we struggled a lot. We did things that we didn't necessarily enjoy, but it was necessary, and that struggle was necessary to get to that point where we can say, okay, we've done what we had to do, and now let's see what we can do in terms of enjoying this infrastructure, this company, this foundation that we've built for ourselves, and how can we enjoy this while contributing our learnings and our skills to wherever we are, or the communities that we live in. So yeah, it's a struggle. It's a balance. It's a fine balance, because when you, and not too many people end up doing what they love. There are very few people who can figure out what they want right away, right off the bat. I'm still figuring it out. I think I would say I've gotten closer to what I want.
yeah.
I've figured out a few things, and sometimes it's more important to understand what you don't want versus what you want, and you only do that by trial and error.
Yeah.
So that might be more important to know about oneself than knowing what you want. We want a lot of things. We want
Mm.
we want money, we want fame, we want peace of mind, we want happiness, whatever happiness means. It could mean money, fame, all that stuff. We want a spouse, we want a family, we want children, we want a car, we want a house. But along with that comes things that we don't want, as you mentioned. When we take on jobs, yeah, jobs there might be a job that may seem very appealing, but along with that comes may come a lot of stress that we don't want. Or maybe some companies, they have politics that we may not want.
Mm.
So it's very important to understand the and maybe appreciate the package for what it is.
Yeah, that's sort of the ongoing battle I think that a lot of people face, which is um, looking backward and getting nostalgic about a time that was better and or easier in life, and getting stuck looking backward instead of saying tomorrow is always going to be more complicated than today, whether it's parents getting older and illnesses or personal health or the markets. There's a million things that could get more complicated tomorrow. So if you're always looking backward, you know, in 5 years, you look back and go, oh, remember 5 years ago, things were so much simpler back then. So this is, you know, part of living in the moment and looking forward to the next thing that excites you, not looking back on either things that were good or regrets you have, because, you know, the past is the past and you can't change it. So yeah, absolutely. I'm curious, you know, you've been in this space, you know, since at least since the founding of Fulcrum.
Mhm.
And that was back in 1999. And I think it's no secret that gender balance in the workforce is lopsided. It's particularly lopsided in the tech space.
Mhm.
So I'd be curious to hear what your experience has been as a woman in tech and what you've seen over the past 20, 25 years or so of how that landscape has evolved or not. It's a big question.
Um, it has evolved in the sense that people are talking about this gender imbalance more than they were before. Right now in the tech industry, I believe about only 25% of the industry is represented by women. And I imagine that a lot of them are in supporting roles such as HR and finance and other such things more than coding. So, but I'm hopeful. I'm hopeful. The awareness is a very big part of it. And when it comes to bringing change, at least we're talking about it. We're talking about this, the gender perception. We're talking about these pay gaps. We're talking about why aren't more women in STEM versus men. And I think part of that starts with right from school, where women need more encouragement, more effort put into how they learn and how they our brains, women's brains are different from men's brains. We tend to be more men tend to be that this is and this is what the research says, that men tend to be more left brained and women tend to be a little more balanced when it comes to left and right. So a lot of that needs to be taken into account when it comes to teaching young girls subjects like STEM, and even when it comes to engineering colleges and universities, although I'm sure the universities are doing great when it comes to the gender ratio, it still doesn't seem to translate as much into the workplace for some reason. And part of that could be maternity issues and responsibilities. Part of that could be just regular household responsibilities. Very often, when it comes to aging parents, the responsibility falls on more women than men. So I don't know what the answer is, but it's great that people are talking about it and having an awareness around it, and that itself is such a big step, I feel, towards the right direction. As far as yeah, I think even our company is more or less at the average, at the industry average when it comes to the gender ratio. But we look forward to, and I know that we actively try to hire more women. And I have seen, it's not just me. I have seen some women come up very by their own effort and skill, come up very high in the ranks in our business. So for that, I'm grateful to see that, and it also is it also gives hope that there's more to come, that this gap will shrink, you know. But there are no clear answers. I mean, it's a little of everything that needs to be taken care of. Maternity leaves need to be better, I think, and and we also offer paternity leaves, by the way, which I'm sure all the men in our company appreciate. But it's still not enough, and all we can do is keep trying, because it's this is an industry-wide problem.
Yeah, and as you said, it's complicated, and
Hmm.
there's a lot of moving parts that contribute to the evolution of this. Um, you noted schools, and at that sort of young adolescent age, there's the part where boys at that stage of puberty tend to be a bit more outspoken and sort of dominate class discussions. So how can young girls sort of compete with these sort of wild boys who are like, who won't like me, who won't stop talking in class. um as well as you look at, I imagine, what is the inspiration for a lot of boys going into tech. I imagine it can be somewhat tied to video gaming, and there's just so much of that. It is so targeted toward boys. All these games are very, that's their target market, is adolescent boys. So where's the sort of piece that's appealing to young girls on the video game side? Like, what are the interests there that are gonna spark people to go, oh, I wonder how this is made. It would be really cool if I have an idea. I want to make this idea. How do I learn how to build something for a video game and get involved in those kinds of tech companies? So yeah, there's hopefully generation to generation, if we're starting this early enough with young enough children, by the time they hit the workforce, it's sort of a full paradigm shift there in terms of what expectations are and where we're trying to move the market.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
A few other comments in here. These are around your discussion points on women in tech and some of the challenges and all that. So, well said. Good info from Cheryl here. And let's see, I haven't read this one yet, so let me look at it before I show it.
Sure.
All right. Congratulations, amazing journey. Keep it up. So a lot of support for you. Just a quick reset. This is Tipping Point Live. We are here with Vandhana Sinha, board member and strategic advisor to Fulcrum Digital. We are live out across LinkedIn, Facebook, and YouTube, as folks have done along the way. And thank you so much for your comments. And feel free to drop questions and comments ongoing into those channels. And if there's any questions, we'll certainly get to them. All right, so shifting gears a little bit, that's a big topic and certainly one that you and I could probably unpack for a full hour session,
Yes.
Which I'd like to at some point, because I think there are things that we can be doing as companies that sort of waterfall back down to how decisions are made.
One of the things that I think that one of the things that our foundation is doing to help women specifically is that we have built a platform for Pune City Connect, which helps women build the skills that they want to build in terms of uh, being able to generate their own income. So whether it is something like, I don't know, as small as knitting, or as well, or learning how to code, and maybe I shouldn't have used the word small for knitting. Knitting is a big deal for a lot of people, but we are helping through our platforms, helping women to build their skills and to be able to put their resumes out there, and earn money for themselves and their families, which gives them a tremendous level of confidence and self-worth.
Yeah.
So
I've actually seen that platform. It is very cool. I know we're actually looking to use that platform and use it on within the U.S. for some state initiatives around the U.S. So that's a great tool, and certainly the training and the ambitions and tracking the training and everything is well done. Shifting gears a little bit, you had touched on, and my eyes lit up when you mentioned this last time we chatted. Comedy. What? Can you walk me back through what where that came from and what that looked like?
So I say this to a lot of people when they ask me how come I don't do it anymore. It was an itch I had to scratch, and I took care of that, and it's done now. But going back to those times when I was juggling a lot of things, it seemed, and I was really feeling I was under a lot of stress at that time. I would go back home after a long day's work and didn't want to talk to anybody. I would sit with my glass of wine and watch comedy just to take the day off of me, like, off my head. And the more I watched it, the more I started thinking, hey, this is something I think I can do. There were ideas that would come into my mind and funny sort of comments, and I thought I'd give it a shot. So I did do a couple of shows, and I got some good feedback from all my family and friends and everybody, and so I'm grateful for that. But I decided not to continue. It's a tough business for someone of my age, and just starting off in my 40s, it wouldn't have been an easy road for me. And as I said, it was an itch I needed to scratch. I took care of it. I I put my video out there for everyone, and that was it. I was done.
I'm sorry. There's a video out there of you doing
Yes.
stand-up? I,
Yes, there is. You'll have to look under Vandy Sinha, and please don't mind the profanity.
you
I've
did you did blue humor?
I did.
Oh my gosh. I need to I see Chris Vaccaro has made a comment. He can confirm that your stand-up comedy was the star of our first
Thank you, Chris.
event. So I must get my hands on that. Chris will collaborate offline to source that. And maybe, you know, we're doing another Tech Exchange October 12th, half day AI focused conference. We may have an open slot there for an opening act. Okay. So that's great. I mean, that's something that I have had ambitions to do. I don't know that I've yet built up the confidence to go out there and do it. But maybe this is inspiration for me to say, hey, I can also do this thing. So I'll keep you posted on that front.
Sounds good. I'd love to see you up there, and I'll cheer you on for sure.
All right, I appreciate that. All right, so we've gone over sort of your journey with Fulcrum, a bit about your personal journey. You know, I want to circle back quickly on the theology piece of things. You had said that you were a vocal atheist for quite some time, and then you sort of life circumstances, epiphanies, whatever it is that gets people to sort of that point where they go, actually, there's something here to unpack. I'm curious, were you looking out across larger theology, and were you sort of doing, you know, looking at different religions and different structures? And I don't know the answer to this normally when I ask questions. I know the answer already, but I'm just personally curious what that process looked like.
So I did actually. Well, I was, in a way, I was searching for what some people would call source, God, divine energy, whatever you want to call it. I was searching. I didn't believe that it existed, but I wanted to, because I knew that that people who had that faith were happier in general, had a greater sense of peace, and just something to. But in my logical, rational mind wouldn't let me. No matter what I tried, I couldn't. In my heart, I didn't feel it. And I used to meditate. I used to. I did some things like breath work and all these kinds of things, which did give me some level of peace. But it wasn't enough. I wasn't sure that there was anything beyond this life. And then all of a sudden, I did something pretty out there that I can't really talk about, but it was it's kind of off the charts crazy, but and but I got what I was looking for. I saw the divine energy within myself, and that's when I realized that it's in everyone,
Yeah.
and that they were right. But you have to. I mean, it's and something I read about recently was. A lot of people put atheism on one end of the chart and then belief or faith on the other end. But I read somewhere that atheism stands right in the middle. There is belief, belief without logic, and then you have atheism, and then you have belief beyond logic.
Mm-hmm.
And both of them are below and beyond are is the difference. Like some people, they believe but they don't know why they believe, and
Right.
then as they slowly start questioning things, I mean, a lot of people end up become atheists when they realize that, oh, why is there so much misery in the world, that the usual questions. And then you I mean, and then it takes, I don't know, sometimes for some people it takes a near death experience, for others it takes a traumatic event, an illness, a
Mm-hmm.
loss of a marriage, whatever it is. But for me it was just this, it wasn't anything as extreme, thankfully, but just this endless need, this search, this desire to understand what was out there, that just get the answer. Like if there's nothing there, then I needed to know, and if there is, I need to see it to believe it, or feel it in the very least. And I did.
And I think, to your point, it's oftentimes harder to see it than it is to feel it, right? Because
Hmm.
there's, the whole scientific method of how do you prove there are deities, and I know that. So it's a personal journey for anyone. There is, I'm sure you know Mel Brooks and Carl Reiner. Are you familiar with the 2,000-Year-Old Man series they did back in like the 60s, 70s? It was a comedy.
I have
This
not watched that. No.
this you need to look up. It's just
Okay.
audio. So it started where Mel Brooks and Carl Reiner they'd be at a lot of the same parties, throughout Hollywood, and they'd do this little like 2-minute act of pretending that Mel Brooks was a 2,000-year-old man, and Carl Reiner would interview him and get sort of funny answers to current questions that this 2,000-year-old man who was thawed out from an ice cap would answer, and he answers it in his typical Mel Brooks funny voice. But they did a whole album of this. Like, there's a 4-part album, and it is laugh out loud, very clever and funny. But there's this one bit where he's asking about the origin of God, right?
Mm-hmm.
And Mel Brooks is talking about, well, they're in the tribe, they're living in the caves, and there was this guy Phil, and he was big and mean. He would beat everybody up, and he was the most important, biggest thing in our cave. And we all were, we bowed down to Phil. Phil's, Phil, whatever you need, whatever you want. And then one day Phil got hit by lightning, and they go, there's something bigger than Phil. So obviously I don't deliver it the way Mel Brooks does, but that whole thing of what is the thing that's bigger than us, because how does this all happen without what is that force, and is it the science? Is it, what does that look like for everyone to understand that you are a piece in a greater whole? And where and how does faith play into that? And then you look at all these various survivors of these traumatic, horrible events, like hostage situations, or someone's wounded up in the Andes and they're alone and trying to make it down to the bottom. And what they always talk about is hope, right? The idea that just crawl 10 more feet, or our families are back home waiting for us and everyone's fighting to get us released. And when they do, like, that hope is not based on anything tangible. That hope and that faith that it will get better is just that. It's faith in something that's empty and not concrete. And we all find that at some point, but what it is a whole different thing, is how you define it and what that means. But as Mel Brooks would say, there's something bigger than Phil.
Yes, and there is, and in fact, we're part of that bigger thing. We're all part of that. It's it's there, and it's for everyone to experience it. There, everyone, it's up to everyone to experience their own divinity, and to see it for themselves. Uh, some people, and within Hinduism, which is my religion, we have there are two philosophies, I guess. One is the idea that everything is God, and there's this dual idea that, okay, God is kind of in everything, but also separate from everything. So, and it takes some time to get a handle on both of these. But I tend to believe that everything is vibration, everything is energy. You, me, this our computers, our desks, everything is moving energy. It's moving at a slower rate than we are, maybe, but and then there are some things that move at a faster rate, but it's we're all vibrations.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We have another comment. You're getting a lot of support. I'm not getting a lot of support, but you're getting a lot of support here, which is great. Most inspiring thing about you is that you're not scared about trying or learning new things. She's always learning,
Thank you,
in
Lakshmi.
learning mode, which is so important. And that's it's a great mindset, right? We never stop learning. And if you have that motivation to learn, it's kind of amazing what you can do.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, I get if I'm not learning, I'm bored. In fact, most recently, I felt like I was in sort of a funk because I wasn't. I mean, I didn't like. I was thinking, oh my God, I don't like anything anymore. Like, why don't I like anything? And I don't care about food anymore, or I don't care about all these things that would excite me. But and then I was talking to Rajesh about it, and he said, you need to go back to school. And I was like, I think I do. And so here we go. And just a quick decision. I mean, although it's not been so quick. It's been on my agenda for Ayurveda has been on my agenda for the last several years. I did do one semester, and then during COVID, and took a break from that. And but I'm excited to go back and learn again. And yeah, Lakshmi is right. I have done a lot of many different things. I've learned a lot of things, and I learn for the sake of learning, not for the sake of you know, going out there and making a career. Or I just enjoy the process. It's so fulfilling for me. Whether I make a dime out of it or not is a separate matter. But just the process of learning, and just it's what keeps me happy.
Oh, well said. So as we head into the home stretch here, before we get to the lightning round, which is just 3 questions that I did not prep you for, but you'll be fine with them.
Okay.
Looking back at your careers, prior to Fulcrum and within Fulcrum and all the things that you've done, a few things. One, what would you say was the biggest challenge? And I'm sure there were many challenges. I know that's a tough question, but can you give us an example of something that was really difficult?
So professionally, I think when you're running your own business, the biggest challenge was for me. I mean, for me, the biggest challenge was to not get emotionally involved in all the. I mean, when things weren't going so well, I took it personally. I took it emotionally, and because it was our business, it was our livelihood. It was, I mean, our in my mind, it was that this was all we had, and I mean, it was, which was true to a good part, but um, I could have done better there. I could have created some sort of separation where it didn't consume me so much.
Mm.
And I do tend to get a little um, overboard with things like that. I do tend to get consumed and obsessed with some things, and then like, look back and say like, wow, did I that was totally unnecessary. I didn't have to burn myself out like that. So I think that was so the challenge. There were challenges that came from the outside, that came externally, but again, internally, I felt like I could have handled it better.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. I appreciate you sharing that.
Mhm.
And then on the flip side, most rewarding moment, or a very rewarding moment?
Again, that this all this that we've created is ultimately what, I mean, it's what we've worked towards. It's to see it flourish like this, to see Fulcrum grow and succeed in this way. As I said before, I could never have imagined that we'd be here. I grew up with under very humble conditions, and it wasn't even. I didn't have big dreams. I didn't. I had very small dreams. Just wanted a small, peaceful life. Didn't imagine that that Fulcrum would become so big, and that we'd be that it would be a source of income, and it would create livelihoods for thousands of people around the world. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, it's been pretty amazing. I've been on board for just over a year and a half, and it's great to see, stories that you don't hear frequently in the tech space, period, of people being on their 15th, 18th, 20th year with a tech company, with a services company, just doesn't happen anymore. And there's so many of those stories within Fulcrum of just that longevity and that loyalty and dedication, and that growth of folks starting in one country, growing, having ambitions to move to another country, and moving with the company, and leading a team. It's encouraging. It's a really encouraging internal growth story that seems to be, across the far reaches of Fulcrum, and on all the continents and all the offices. So that's been really exciting to watch. So we're going to hit the lightning round, and I
Okay.
chose this lightning round. You'll see why I chose it.
Okay.
So when you were watching comedy, were you watching sitcoms, stand-up comedians, or both?
Mostly stand up.
Okay.
Yeah.
So who it's hard to say who your favorite is, because I struggle with that. But give us a few names of the stand-ups that you admired and really helped inspire you.
Okay. John Mulaney,
Okay.
Veer Das. Um, Let me see, Gary Gulman.
Okay.
He's really good, and he's very authentic and allows himself to be vulnerable, which is what I like about him. Let me see. Mm, Tom Segura is a good
Okay.
one.
Okay.
Ali Wong, she's really
Yeah.
good. And unfortunately, there are more men than women in this space too.
Yeah.
I wish I had more female names to give, but I don't. But yeah, some of these are I wouldn't mind watching over and over again. Oh, Jim
Okay.
Jeffries, and this this is British comedian. I'm struggling to remember his name, but anyway, if it comes to me, I'll mention it.
What does the British comedian look like?
He has a weird laugh. That he's white. He's
Yeah.
lean,
James
dark
Acaster?
hair. Say
Dark
that
hair?
again.
Dark
Yeah.
hair? This guy's he's red hair. Is James Acaster, who's quite funny, British comedian.
No, I haven't. I don't
Um,
remember watching him. Uh,
Jimmy Carr is a
Jimmy
British.
Carr. Yes, yes, Jimmy Carr.
he's
Yes,
he is somewhat irreverent.
yes,
Um,
he is. He is. And he has a. I mean, every time I hear him laugh, I laugh just at the way he laughs. So,
yeah,
so
yeah,
it's
he did that game show, which I'm not a big fan of game shows, but his stand up was funny. I'm recalling parts of the John Mulaney stand up where he talks about the detective Bittenbinder when he was in school in Chicago, and he didn't want you to get kidnapped, but he didn't not want you to get kidnapped. He was teaching kids how to get away from, and it was a very funny bit. Okay, so that's cool. I have some other comedians I'll send your way that you didn't list that I think you would enjoy.
uh-huh.
Um, and so it's still in I had a few of these entertainment questions, like favorite movie, favorite comedic actor. If you want to go down that path, I wasn't
Sure,
sure.
sure. Favorite movie. Wow, I that's going to be a hard one. I guess the first question would be Bollywood or Hollywood.
Okay.
Um,
Well, give us a few. I know that I change day to day. Like this day, this is my favorite movie, but this is
yeah.
usually sort of the top five that rotate through.
Okay. So, Bollywood. Let's see. Okay. One of my most favorite romantic classic is Dilwale Dulhania Le Jayenge. It was also the first movie that Rajesh and I watched together.
Oh, that's nice.
Um, and More recently, I've enjoyed movies like Bollywood movies like Darlings. That was a good movie. I like a movie with that deals with social issues. I do like those kinds of movies. In Hollywood, let me see. I love Tom Hanks. So
Ah,
Forrest Gump.
he's America's sweetheart. I mean,
Yes,
who,
yes.
my
He's
wife cries every Tom Hanks movie. There's a moment where my wife cries because he always gets you at the end. But yeah, Tom Hanks is great.
he's amazing. I love him. Yeah, it's let me see what else. Tom Hanks. There were a couple. The movie in which he was the captain of the ship. I forget.
Captain Phillips.
Yes, that one. And then let me see who are the other. I'll have to think of the actors that I like watching. I like watching George Clooney, but there was this one movie where he forgive me, I can't remember now, but let me think about who else. Um,
We can save it for the
yes,
next vidcast we'll do. And
yes.
then I'm curious on the music side of things. Are you a music fan? And if so, what types of
I
music?
am stuck in the 90s. I am so stuck in the 90s. I listen to that all the time. and my son tells me that I'm stuck. My Rajesh tells me that he's sick of hearing the same old songs all the time. But I listen to pop
Okay.
from the 90s. And then I love Bollywood songs from the
Okay.
90s and the thousands. Um, the newer songs are also, some of the new songs are good, but I'm not too crazy about them. Let me see. uh, I grew up with George Michael and
Okay.
Madonna and Lata Mangeshkar and Kishore Kumar. I mean, those two, the last two are from the Bollywood industry, stalwarts from I mean, legendary singers. So a mix of songs and music, but
Okay.
I I'm just an old. I have an old heart, I guess, in that sense. I like the old stuff.
There's a new documentary on Wham. By the way, George Michael's
Yes.
original band. I haven't watched it yet. I'll watch it at some point, but that's out there. All right. Thanks for answering the personal questions there. I'm always curious. They change every week based on, I know, my mood really.
Uh-huh.
But so thanks so much for joining us for this hour. It's been really nice getting to know you a bit better and insightful on a lot of levels. And thanks for sharing your story and Fulcrum story and the Fulcrum Foundation and your personal journey. Thank you so much. And thanks to all the folks who help support this podcast across the team, in Preeti, in Aaron. We are now live, not live. We are now on Spotify as well, on the podcast. So we're lifting the audio from these and putting them onto a podcast. And these episodes will live on the Fulcrum Digital website as well as the Fulcrum Digital social channels. Do you have any closing remarks or any final words of wisdom, Vandana?
No, just thank you for having me here. This was fun. And yeah, I mean, everyone keep your vibrations high, I guess. And that's it.
Thanks very much. We'll be back as always next week. This is the end of Tipping Point with Vandana Sinha, and we'll see you all down the road.
Thank you.